Hey everyone, it's Donnell McAdams, Westerly Design accredited teacher and So Steady promoted instructor, along with Megan.
Hey guys.
So we're going to go ahead and get started this time.
We're having issues. If you've been with us, this is our third attempt. We're going to try, give it a couple minutes. If not, we don't know.
Yeah, we don't know for sure what we're going to be doing. The speeds here says everything should be fine. It is very frustrating on your end. I know it takes us 6 times to start in and out. So this, I'm not sure why it's having issues. So I'm going to go one more time. We're going to turn off and we're going to do one more time. Okay, Megan says we're not doing that, and she's the producer here, so we're going to go on. So here we go. This is the handout. It's available on the SoBizMarion.com website. It's also available at the Westerly Facebook page, as well as page 9 instead of 8 here on the back. So let's get started. This is what we did last week. It is from the holiday stock. That's correct. We pieced it together, and so we're going to be quilting this today. This is the back piece here that we did in the cross hatching this week. And remember, we had a margin around everything, and so that margin around there allowed us to stitch from here to here and then continue on without cutting all the time. So I did 5 times already, but we're going to go with this one. I do apologize if you only knew what we've been through. So we are going to start, and the first 3 pages are ones we did last week, but I want you to notice on the very front page to purchase works for us. So the first 3 pages we've already done. If any of you tried and could not find the June Taylor stocking, and we are going to work with just that front piece, and we are going to be starting with our scallop template from the sampler set. That is, if you're doing it like my stocking, and it really does not matter. Yeah, I know. Thank you, Linda, for hanging in there with us. It is very frustrating. Page number 9.
It's 9.
So what we're going to be doing is we're going to look here to see which of these sections are we putting what in. And so if we look at this, now this is not to scale. So up here at the sections, so I'm going to say, okay, this particular one, I'm going to be putting my cross hatching in. And the next one is the one I'm going to put my between the lines in. And then down, we're going to come down here and we're going to be doing our stars. So the one that I'm actually going to use to put my scallops in, I'm only going to have 1 row on mine. Well, we'll see right down here. This is probably 2 inches there. So you kind of want to plan your work there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this section.
Got a few questions for you.
Perfect.
What did you say about the June Taylor stocking if they can't find it?
Just email me and I'll let you know where there's a link to get that. Send me a message on my Quilting and Sewing with Donnell McAdams. We'll get you set up.
Okay, another question on your cut that you're doing right now. Is this the finished cut, or do we have any extra around there?
No, there is no extra around. I want to make sure that I know where this is along the bottom here, and that I've got a 2-inch line. Now, I've stitched mine, but if you don't have a stitched line right there, you could draw one. We are going to be stitching 1/4 inch away from this line. Obviously, I'm setting the first, right here, the top etched line on. So this is on the seam line, so this first line will be right there on that seam line. Now, as I told you last week, we're going to be using some different threads. So the first one that I'm going to put in, this one is a rayon thread. It's a gold rayon thread here. I don't have to change that I'm doing this. So as we're cutting in and out, I may repeat a lot. I'm not changing my bobbin. I'm using a rayon thread, and so I'm simply threading this up. When I set it into the right mode, it will allow me to thread with my foot down, but the tension is not engaged. So that means that I've got a machine that I am on. So I'm going to go ahead, I've threaded that. Like I said, you don't need to change your bobbin every single time unless something shows through. So I'm going to pull that underneath, and like I showed you on this picture, the first line on the template is the one that I'm lining up with. So hopefully you can see that here in this photo. Even though this is going to be in our stocking together, I want control of these threads to begin with. And that's when I get out my tweezers and pull that bobbin thread up. And I like to have the tweezers that are, again, it's going to be in that seam allowance. And with it in the seam allowance, I'm able to just put this right up to the edge.
Sandy wants to know what weight is that?
And this one is a 40 weight. So this is a 40 weight thread. And it very much this is going to be one that's good to use. So I'm down at the end, I'm off the edge, it doesn't matter, I'm just going to, I just raised the foot. So you can see I have a little scallop right along that edge. Now to make it match, if I wanted to, well, I shouldn't continue that scallop, but I'm going to do this down here. Is just a very short section. I'm going to take my ruler and I'm putting one of the lines. I'm going to take this off so it doesn't confuse you there. That's my ruler sticker for something else that I was. And I am going to line the one side up right in the dip, right there in that dip, so that I have to line up so that these will be exactly opposite each other. So I'm going to take that first line, put the dip here, and that first line on that position. And so this is kind of a bit tricky here, but you're getting ready for that kind of thing. So I'm going to come right here in this edge, just right there in the very edge. And I'm going to put my needle down, and I'm pulling up my bobbin thread. So I've got both of them up on the top, although it looks like it's just coming up from the bobbin. And I'm going to go back here and position on my little hill there is right on that stitch line because that's away from the other line. So that's 2 inches. I've stitched that line. You could have just had a marked line, and I'm lining up my chalk line. So this is a little bit tricky here. So let me show you what I do to make that easier. I usually have a little piece of extra fabric that I can grab onto, but since I can't find that, I'm just going to get my stocking up against here. I know you all have days when it's like, what is the deal here? Today must be one of those. Because this way, this is on there. You can see I have no, and so now that I've got this underneath,
I will say we have some of the best viewers because they're all telling us that they appreciate.
So you can see this little extra piece of fabric is helping me. So now all I'm going to do is cut that, and let her press that line off so that that line is that, because that pretty much finishes that particular part of the design.
Nothing about that, but if you guys have questions, send them in.
I have my little tiny iron here right beside me, and I just ironed that line right off.
Sorry, I had to laugh. Peggy says that there is kind of a...
Fortunately, wouldn't you like to be a fly on the wall Monday morning when I call Spectrum? All right, we have done this particular design. You have all of the instructions there. You can see how it was done, and we're ready to move.
Has a question. Is the inside lining on the front piece? Not right now, right? You don't have...
For those that were asking about no lining yet, we have no lining on there. And so now what we're going to be doing is the opposite side of the template. I'm going to look on that back page again and see where I want to put that. And I think that's going to end up going in that red section there, this red section. So I've tried to make this so you won't be changing threads all the time. And so we're going to come down here, and this time, usually you line up with that top line on the template. So if you're not familiar, I'm going to lay it here on the red. And so I have right here, I have multiple lines. You usually line up with the top line. Today, to make this look a little different, so if you look on your page there, number 5, you can see the first line. We're lining up on the seam line with the second edge. So the bottom of the dip will be resting on the line also. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this here, and I'm kind of going to see what's this going to look like when I get to the other end. And that looks like that would be good. So move this to the first right here. And down in this dip, I really don't need to be there because out here I can't get to that. So I'm going to just start right out here in the seam because we're going to be taking a seam around there. So I'm going to put my needle down, bring my needle up, and because I left that thread long, you can see I've left it long. I can't even get a hold of it. There it is. I'm going to bring that needle up, but I'm going to do what I call floss underneath there. And when I do that, you probably can't see it because my bobbin thread is red. I'm going to be able to get a hold of that thread and pull that thread out. So I'm right on this line, foot down, and I'm going to start there, which would be in the seam allowance. I'm going to leave the needle down, and you can see because we moved up, space. So with that extra space, we're going to have kind of a unique look. So I'm coming across. Going to stop it because as you can see, I'm right in the corner. So I'm just going to come across here a little bit. I may have to use some... I guess I'm not going to do that. So I'm going to raise that needle up, raise that foot up, and position where I want to be, which is going to be right in. Do the same thing that I did before. I'm going to put one of my straight lines right there on my seam, and I'm going to line up with that dip line. And where I need to be is just over a little bit farther here. And remember, I'm still out in that seam allowance. Take this and come up just a bit. Second line, I'm lined up. I'm lined up this way. And so now when I go across, I can't believe I did that. I can believe it. Today is that day. So you just saw how a mistake becomes something different. When I lined up here, I lined up with the top of the hill instead of the bottom of the hill. So if you want to look at the hill and not the top of the hill. But if you want it to look like this, which is cool also, wasn't what you intended, Donna, I'll take that out. I'm like, no, I'm not taking that out. That's not going to bother me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cut this thread here. And we are now going to do our next step. So this is the next step here. Well, this is what we just did, and this is what it should look like when it's completed. And the next step we're going to do is our cross hatching. So I haven't been paying attention. Is it still cutting in and out a ton?
It's about every minute.
Every minute. Frustrating.
They would like you to turn it over so they can see the back. Can you do that?
Sure.
So they can...
There's what the back looks like. I'll pull that extra thread out. Need to cut it out anyway. You that are willing to stay on with us, to keep going, I may do this again earlier in the week or later in the week so that you can see it.
Yeah, because some of you, like Nancy said, they'll watch the replay. Unfortunately, guys, Susan likes that design. Thanks, Susan.
You know what? We can have a part 2B. So let's go ahead and we're going to stop and come right back. We're going to try a different connection.
Well, give us about 4 minutes. Can we do it?
Yeah, so stay with us.